Blake LeVine, and today I'm going to talk about parenting when you live with depression. I am here with my son, who is 2.5 years old. So, in the background, you may notice him possibly talking. But the reason I wanted to share this educational lesson with you today is many times parents go through hard times and challenges, and it can be really difficult to face the responsibilities of what it means to be a parent. So I want to begin with starting off that parenting is something that is so complex, but we are all in different places in our lives when we become a mom or a dad. For example, some of us say, "Hey, you know what? I'm dying for a child. I'm, ready for it. I'm excited, and I plan to be a parent." They get pregnant, then have the baby. Other people, it just happens without them expecting it, and that can be difficult and obviously a hard situation if they're not ready to be a parent. I've also seen that age can play a factor, so sometimes very young people have a child, and that can be a little bit more difficult. And then as you get older, it can be maybe a little bit easier. But then if you get past a certain age, it can be more difficult as your energy levels might not be enough to handle all the pressure and stress of being a parent. So the first part of living with depression is that it doesn't make parenting go away. So, if you have your child and you're responsible for watching them, being depressed doesn't give you an excuse to not be there for them. And I have seen, first working as a psychotherapist and doing counseling in New York for several years in a practice, and then doing life coaching and now writing books about these topics, that people can go through really hard times mentally and then try to be a parent, and it's almost like a double burden. So they're trying to take care of themselves, and then they have pressure of their children. They may also have financial issues where they're trying to make sure they have enough money for not only themselves but for their family. That can be an added stress. And I just want to do this talk to give some hope, because I think often when people have depression and kids, they sometimes don't know what to do and they feel ashamed for being depressed. And I really believe that the first part of depression is it's a medical condition. It doesn't mean you're a bad person or a weakling or a loser or a failure. People of all ages, all backgrounds, all financial levels get depression. I've seen over the years people of all types that end up being depressed. And what I have seen is that the first step is to say, you know what, I'm going to admit this is hard. I'm having a rough time. And then you can go, find a therapist or a psychiatrist. Okay, Ryan, give me 1 second. And you can find someone to talk to and work with. And that really is a great way. I've even seen, first as a therapist and then going to counseling, that getting that 1 hour a week to sit with someone and talk about your life, to open up, to have someone act as a sounding board to you, can be so valuable and helpful. It's also nice to not have the children in there, so you can really be open and express what you're feeling and not worry about being judged or ashamed or embarrassed. So that's the first step, is seeking help. The second step is knowing that it's a really long battle. In one of my books, I talked about depression almost like it's a war, that it's not going to be won in a moment, and there's going to be a lot of battles through the months or years that you face it. In my own life, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder in my teens. It took 2 years of being in and out of psychiatric hospitals for a month at a time to really finally get some stability, find the right medicine and right therapist, and slowly rebuild. Since that time, it's been almost 20 years. A lot's happened. I'm married. I was actually engaged on the Dr. Phil show. I've been married to my wife for over 10 years. We have 2 children, a 7-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. And I've learned that, you can have a full life with these issues. I've had the opportunity to educate. Dr. Drew Pinsky and I taught college students about bipolar on a media tour. I was able to share my story at over 40 chapters of the National Alliance on Mental Illness and the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance. I wrote the book Beating Bipolar for Hay House, the book Depression, Bipolar, and Heroin about mental illness and addiction. I wrote this book, The Positive Worker, about having optimism in our career. I have a book coming out called The Psychology of Adult Coloring. And then in January of 2017, The Depression Diet, teaching what I've learned about living and facing depression. So I just want to tell you today that you maybe have been through a long battle. I was reading something on the National Institute of Mental Health's website today, and they were talking about how depression can happen for so many different reasons. It can be genetic. It may be going through financial problems, make it worse, maybe losing a relationship, having a loved one pass away or die. These things can really, be hard. And I also want to tell you that it's unique. So the depression you're facing, is based on you, and you need the help that's going to work perfectly in your life. So that means working with your therapist and doctor, trying to figure out what's going to be the best. I also want to say that I exercise 5 days a week. That's been one of the greatest outlets for me, being able to use my body and mind and get it going and having that time. And as a parent, I've had to be creative. So I'm here with my son. I watch him during the day, and he can take a nap, and I'll start exercising in the house. I can do push-ups and jumping jacks, squats, and I'll just do 45 minutes to an hour in my home when I get the time. Even if he's watching television, I can do that for a few minutes. And I find that exercise really is a positive step in the right direction. I also think that support is so valuable. So if you have family or friends, stay connected to them. Even if it feels hard to talk to them or you're worried they're going to know you're upset, don't give up on having people in your life, because we all need each other. And when you have depression, you can't really be alone. So I want to thank you for watching this. I'm going to share some links for some support places. The National Alliance on Mental Illness has support groups in many communities. It's free, and they have a great amount of knowledge. I also want to share the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance. They also have support groups. I'll put those links below. You can get this book if you'd like. It's called The Positive Worker. It talks about having optimism in our career. And I'll put my link below to the Depression Diet coming out in January of 2017. It's a really awesome guide. I talk about all the challenges and struggles I faced in my life, being a parent, having my wife go through a horrible depression, my brother dying of a heroin overdose, facing financial battles, and what it took to really get through all of that hard, difficult stuff. And today things are a lot better than they were. So I thank you for watching this, and I pray today that your life gets better.